bedroom with a little ray of light.
When somebody tries to, you know, kind of label you or define you, I see my job as undermining that.
We do things our way, and punk was very much like that. You know, it was three chords and loud and brash, and well, if you don't like it, go and listen to Steve Hillage.
I think the whole punk freedom movement runs through Stephen and the Sportsman and his cooking. We need more punks to be cooking in this world, I think.
All I'm getting is interference on my radio.
I grew up in Whitstable, which is about 3 or 4 miles that way. I was in a band called The Ignorants, and we played in London. You know, we played at the Marquee and the Vortex and those kind of, you know, punk gigs. And so we rehearsed for a month or two at Graveney Village Hall. And when we'd finished rehearsing, we'd come in here and just chat about plans, deciding which songs, you know, worked and which ones didn't. The Sportsman was this weird place on the edge of town. You'd walk in and the barman would scowl at you. It's the same now, but except it's my brother now, so it doesn't bother me so much. Okay, so we'll go in and I'll show you around. I came out with a friend on Boxing Day 1998. There was a banquette, you know, a bench seat that ran along the wall there. It was rough, but basically the same. And yeah, I was sitting here with my friend and I kind of had almost a light bulb moment, you know. That was it. I just thought, this is the place. To win the National Restaurant Awards, it feels almost like the end of a story. Winning it the second year, this year, that was a bigger shock in a way than the year before.
Bum diddy, black dogs and Martins. Bum diddy, size 9.
I was working as a financial consultant. I was a bit woolly for it, you know, it was all a bit gung-ho. But what the main thing was, is it enabled me to go to these great restaurants. I could go to a restaurant, eat a dish, and then copy it at home, and I would then have a kind of a template for how this dish should taste as it was cooked in the restaurant. So that's how I taught myself to cook.
The autodidact thing is a family trait.
He was very similar to that with his guitar playing.
We have to know how it works. For me, it's mechanical things. With Stephen, it's food.
I used to run a record label called Skint back in the late 90s. Fatboy Slim was the sort of the big one. So I put in the initial sort of seed money, and I just sort of stand back and take the reflected glory.
I had a choice. I remember getting to a point where, which direction do I go in? Do I go down the usual restaurant of getting more and more poncy or more refined? Or do I go down the route of kind of an elemental route, you know, like salt? It's the most basic thing. 1,000 years ago, this was the larder for Canterbury Cathedral. Actually, it's not too bad. What you've got here is the most incredible, what the French would call a terroir. And so we started doing a tasting menu from everything around here. And the kind of icing on the cake, if you like, was the salt coming from the sea just outside. We don't call it foraging, we call it picking, because we've always done it. For us, it's not a fashion or a trend. It surrounds us. And I don't care anyway. You know, I don't need to justify it. That's what I do. We have a policy on TripAdvisor, which is that we ignore it. So let's have a look. This restaurant is a tatty, scruffy building that should have been refurbished 10 years ago. The interior is similarly tired. Yeah, probably right. This is a pub and not a particularly pretty one. Probably right, I don't care. A common theme in many write-ups is that the Sportsman was remote and a bit of a dump. The outside needed to have been, I mean, you know, it's just like, they're telling us what we already know. On our Twitter biography, I put a grotty rundown pub by the sea. And the reason I put that was because I've always had this thing of, we never asked anyone to come here. We never have advertised. We've never done any PR. In the 17 years, it literally was me in the kitchen, my brother or my sister Gabrielle out front. That's how it started. And then it grew into what it is now, where it's full every day.
It's a really foodie restaurant. It doesn't look like much, it's a grotty boozer, as Stephen says, but what's on the plate is fantastic. And people who know their food and who travel around and who eat, they go there, they have a meal, they love it, they come back time and time again.
Am I still a punk? It was a certain moment in time. Music had got bloated, it got fat and lazy, and it was full of people like Rod Stewart, you know, wiggling his arse in latex. People like me were thinking, I just want to go and see a band in a club. I'd rather be in that sweaty club with a band that's right in front of me, playing music that I can actually feel. You know, keeping things a bit real, keeping things close to what they originally were, a certain honesty, a certain... That, to me, is important in food as it is in music. I would go to restaurants and there'd be all this extraneous stuff, and I saw that as the same as Emerson, Lake and Palmer's stack of amps and emulators and all that stuff. They can spill sauces all over me, they can forget my drinks order, but if the food's great, that's what I love. Why does food have to come with all this complication? Why can't you just cook and put it on a table and that's it? So in that sense, yeah, maybe I am.